100 Thieves, weirdly enough,
Yeah.
has one of the worst finals records of any team in the LCS. Do you know what organization with more than one finals appearance has a worse record than them?
Please tell me who.
You. FlyQuest is the only org to be winless. It has been 3 long weeks since we've had any LCS games, but we are back. We are better than ever. If you're in New York, we're watching it in Brooklyn on Sunday. Be sure to come out. But otherwise, welcome back to The Pit. It has been 2 weeks since I've made one of these videos, and I promised that I would do all pro voting and a bunch of other stuff last week, of which life got busy, like really busy. And even this week, things have been hectic as well. But I was able to put together something special for this video in particular, and that is going through the individual strength of schedules for the remaining teams and seeing how they stand in terms of their race for playoffs. Who's more likely to get in, who's not? What does each individual journey for every team look like? And a special guest later coming on. First, a reminder of the standings. FlyQuest currently on top, 100 Thieves surprising everybody, currently in second place with the chance to control their own destiny to first. Team Liquid comfortably in third place. Well, not really. They got a lot of people right on their heels, including NRG, Dignitas, and Cloud9, all of whom are in this 4-5 losing record soup bubble. And one more below them is Shopify Rebellion and Immortals Progressive. I don't know why I just forgot about that completely. So in order to calculate strength of schedule, I took the win differential for each team, which means FlyQuest, for example, they are 7-2. They have a win differential of 5. Therefore, if somebody plays them, they get 5 points. The lower the score, the better your remaining schedule is. The higher the score, the harder your schedule is. So let's start from the easiest and work our way back, which this might surprise some people. 100 Thieves arguably has the easiest schedule remaining. There's technically a tie, but because they're the higher seed, you would assume that they're more likely to beat the top teams that they would end up facing. Therefore, I would say they have the easiest schedule out of everybody, which is daunting for a group of rookies that just took 3 weeks off of the game. Well, not practicing, but at least on stage where they reportedly performed better. The fact that they played Dig, Immortals, Shopify, and NRG, all of whom with losing records, that's a good sign for them, considering that they only need 1 win, I think, to lock a tiebreaker for playoffs at minimum. So they're in a good spot, but that single matchup against FlyQuest this upcoming Sunday could possibly determine their fate of being able to have the 1 seed, or at least a tiebreaker for first place, in the LCS going into playoffs, which would mean they would potentially pick their opponent. Now, FlyQuest are obviously heavy favorites going into that match. There's no sense hiding that, but it's incredible that we are at this point. They're in second place and they have the easiest schedule remaining. That's nuts. On the flip side, though, tied with them technically, but because they're lower in the standings, they're less likely to beat the opponents above them, is Shopify Rebellion, who currently sit tied for 7th, 8th place, which is outside of playoffs. They do need to make up ground on the teams above them. But when you have a schedule that is Immortals, Dignitas, and NRG, all 3 of their next games, you're looking at that saying, yeah, if they're going to make a run, they're probably going to do it. They do finish with 100 Thieves and Cloud9, so it's, arguably going to be a little bit of a tougher closing than most other teams. But these next 3 games are going to be incredibly important. They could potentially walk out of this week rebounding from the break with a 2-0, and all of a sudden they're sitting comfortably in the playoff mix. But I think we'll know by the end of this weekend. If we get to Sunday and they don't have any wins, it's chalked, my friends. Potentially. I mean, by all means, there are harder schedules, but you have an easy schedule. That's the narrative going into this. You should be able to pick up some of these wins, and if you don't, then it's even worse. I'm not sure if the video will be out at this point, but there is going to be a 100 Thieves versus Shopify Are You Smarter Than trivia game, of which Shopify decided to chirp me on Twitter, to which I would say, how about you show up on the Rift first before you start talking shit? But to his and her their own. The 6th easiest schedule goes to Team Liquid Honda, who still have a negative number, which means they face more bad opponents than they do good, or at least it kind of offsets, because they still do have to play FlyQuest, so that is going to be a pretty tough one. But besides that, you're looking at closing out the season with a little bit easier matchups against both Immortals and Dignitas, but those NRG Cloud9 matches, 1 and 2 coming back from this break, I know they have a -1 differential right now, and they're considered a weak opponent, but these are not 2 enemies that you can underestimate at all. These are the 2 teams that everybody's looking to say, hey, they're probably going to bounce back, or at least they should, and if they do, it causes problems. So Try and take care of business if you're TL. If you can't win these first two, sure, you're probably still going to make it in the playoffs given the final two games, but it gets a little bit more dicey if you don't. For Cloud9, I mean, most people are going to look at the schedule and be like, yeah, you know what? They should still be fine. You ignore FlyQuest, and even if they do lose to TL, you close out final week super week with the 3 arguably easiest opponents in the league. That said, they've won 1 game in their last, 5? So I don't care how long this break was. They're coming back not as the favorites. And I know a lot of people are going to be really high on them and be singing their praises, but ultimately, like, they didn't look good against any team. I'm sorry, I don't care how good your scrims are. I don't care how good people talk about you behind the scenes. If you can't show up on the day and win your games, you're just FlyQuest of last year, and it's completely irrelevant. C9 fans will not be happy if they miss playoffs. 4th easiest schedule of the league for Immortals Progressive, but I still can't figure out with this team. Apparently they're doing better in scrims. Apparently they're like decent behind the scenes, but whenever it comes on stage, they just can't get it to work. At least not consistently enough. You're looking at this first game against Shopify as a big test. If you can't win this, you are officially last place in the league, and it only gets worse when you face NRG, 100 Thieves, and Cloud9 still. So yeah, you got to win this first one. Not saying they can't pull off upsets against the other teams that are, you know, above them in the standings, but you got to win the one that's on the people that you're going to be with a tiebreaker for. Like, if you can't have any sort of tiebreaker scenario against the teams around you, you're in trouble. Now we get into the top 3 hardest schedules, starting with FlyQuest, the top team. These first 4 games back are just not easy for them. Obviously, they're the top team. You still go into this expecting them to win, but it's not like this is a run-of-the-mill. If they can win all these, then yeah, they're the predominant favorites going into playoffs and should clear everybody. But they drop some of these games. It gets a little bit testy. So I decided to hit up Curly, who is notably one of the co-hosts of Flight Check, which is the FlyQuest fan podcast, and get his thoughts on stuff. You guys are #1 team, but how bad is it going to feel if you lose to 100 Thieves and don't finish first?
I mean, here's the thing. If we lose to 100 Thieves the way that they've been doing this like whole split, I'm not even going to be that mad. Like, I have a lot of respect on their name, and I even updated like halfway through. I was like, hey, these 100 Thieves guys aren't as bad as I thought they were going to be. But if we don't get first place, that'll sting a little bit because we've been on lock forever. So if we lose it in these last 2 weeks because of 100 Thieves, I'm going to be a little salty. I've got a secret grudge against them because of some old relationships with other fan pods, you know?
Oh, you're bringing Jordan and Cole into this, really?
Here's the thing. I love Jordan and Cole, and like my favorite thing is if you look at their old Discord server, which is now just archived, I would frequently be the villain of the FlyQuest fandom, going in there starting shit with them whenever it was time to throw down on the Rift.
I mean, look, that's fair. I respect that. But let me ask you this. You want to talk a lot of shit.
Okay.
100 Thieves, weirdly enough, has one of the worst finals records of any team in the LCS. Okay? 1-3 record. Only win being against TL. Do you know what organization with more than 1 finals appearance has a worse record than them?
Please tell me who.
You. FlyQuest is the only org to be winless in 2 times in making finals. We ain't even going to talk about the times that you choked before making it there.
Oh, look, I will forever be mad at Eric Ritchie. All right. I love the guy, but it is his fault.
I mean,
oh my goodness.
Also, like, as much credit as people give Whippo, what do you say to him not having a single title?
Look, Fnatic is a very special organization that has a very big curse, if you ask me, in Europe, because I don't know the last time they won a title, but they have a huge, ever since G2 came in and started cleaning things up, it's always they make it to the end but never cross the finish line. So I don't think that's his fault. And then really? I also
he becomes a starter and immediately they never win again.
Okay, but
because they won in
Fnatic goes over to G2 as well.
Fnatic won in 2018, but he wasn't starting. That was SOAS.
That was before G2 locked in, all right? You know, and that's over in Europe and all that stuff. And that was a young Bwipo. This Bwipo, he's a veteran now, all right? He has had his time. He even dipped it into the jungle and he took a year off and all that stuff. So this is going to be definitely the first title that he wins. Like it's going to be his first title. It's going to be the org's first title. Like I'm confidently saying that.
I thought the old
There's
dog was
no one
supposed to
that's going to
learn
stop
new
us.
tricks and not get worse.
He's not. Where do you see him getting worse? Please tell me.
World's finals, and where's he been since? Oh wait,
World's
sitting
finals.
on the bench in Team Liquid. I'm sorry.
Look, not to flame or anything, but all I'm saying is there's a correlation between a particular coach that was on, the world staff for Fnatic and a certain org that is struggling in the LCS right now. Not saying names, but can you see the difference? Can you see the similarities? All right. And then Team Liquid, you should never make a super team. We even learned from it. That was the super team when Bwipo was on it. I tried to avoid the super team terminology last year, but we got to be real. It was the super team. And so now he's just back on a good team. And I'd say being on a good team is better than being on a super team.
You guys are always good, though, until you aren't. That's the problem. You get so close, and then it always falls apart. I mean, what's going to make this even more painful is that you have every chance in the world to end the competitors that you will likely face. C9 and NRG could both technically miss playoffs.
They could.
It'd be very painful to lose to them after you've had this big of a head start.
Well, then I guess it just has to not happen.
It could, but you guys have you guys have the third hardest strength of schedule remaining. Granted, you're obviously the first seed. You will be favorites going into every game, but it is still the third hardest schedule of any team in the league. That doesn't scare you at all.
No.
Okay.
Not at all. Like if you ask Nox and Sandy, they always know my predictions before we do them, because I am a firm believer in FlyQuest, and I've told every one of my friends, once we got Bwipo on the roster, I was going to become the most annoying FlyQuest fan because I can see them doing no wrong even when they lose. I have the rosiest tinted of glasses, and I will be perfectly honest about that. But that is because I am so firm in my belief in this team.
Do you think Inspired is clear-cut MVP?
No. Are you kidding me? Like, all respect to Inspired. He's a phenomenal jungler and, really great all around. I think you could probably pick an MVP from at least half of the roster, depending on how these last 2 weeks play out. But like, I think people don't understand how much Bwipo actually does, because in a lot of the games that we've won, it's him preventing the enemy top laner from existing, period, for anything. And then by the time the late game comes out, he's a secret raid boss that the enemy team wasn't able to deal with at all. Like, he is doing such a good job. And then when talking to the coaching staff and all that stuff, he has a major part in like everything behind the scenes of like, conversations and game planning and even shot calling in it. It's like, he's kind of, I don't want to say he's the mastermind of the team, but like, he yaps, and he's always saying something good when he's yapping.
I didn't think you would provide a case for him not to win MVP when asking that question, but somehow you found a way to do so.
Oh, how do you mean?
Because I'm a big believer that you cannot have multiple people from a team be candidates for MVP and validly consider them MVPs. That's a good team. That's not an MVP then. Like, in my eyes, an MVP is the person that without them, your team is not the same and cannot function. They are literally the most valuable player in the league. I don't think FlyQuest is where they are without Inspired. For that reason, he's my MVP. I get what you're saying about Bwipo, but I think it is a combination of the players that you have that allows him to do that to a certain extent.
Oh, yeah.
I just think Inspired's impact in the game is currently unmatched by anyone other than one other person.
I mean, I'd say the only other jungler out there having the same impact is River. So, like, good job you guys for having him.
But River's not in my top 3 MVP either.
Well, that's because 100 Thieves is just a lot better than anyone expected. Again, I got to give respect to you for that one.
My 1-2 is Inspired Quid at the current moment.
Quid, really? You think without Quid that 100 Thieves wouldn't be doing as good as they are?
Has he had a single bad game to split, even in their losses? I can point to at least 2 games where River did not have good games. At least 2. Yes, River has very high highs, but I'd argue Quid's highs are even higher, notably his Talia games that he played. And then his floor is just up here relative to every other mid laner in the league right now. It's not even close. Like, I think you put Quid on any LCS roster right now, they're instantly better. Assuming
I guess
he
you
has
gotta hope
synergy
that
with
C9
them.
doesn't poach him.
No, I'm not worried about that trash can of an organization. We're fine. Their
Damn, you pull no punches.
Their systems led to them having 1.5 coaches. So, have fun.
All right.
Any final words? Because like the amount of titles you guys have, I don't have any more questions.
Well, I have something for you actually, and it's I want you to make an argument here because I think my rookie is better than your rookie. So why do you think that either of your rookies are going to get rookie of the split?
Quid is still able to get rookie of the split, correct?
Is he as well? I don't know. I don't think so. It's only Sniper and Meech.
There is no rookie of the split award. There's only rookie of the year award.
Okay, so then
if that's the case, if Quid is not available, Quid gets it right now. In my opinion, if he's eligible, Quid gets it hands down.
I think because of last summer, I don't think he's able to.
And if that's the case and he's not, I've seen a lot of highs from your bot lane, but I've also seen the floor, and that's also what gives credence to Inspired getting MVP potentially, because in all the games where your bot lane straight up runs it down, he is there to clean up the mess. When has anybody in the league, or when has anybody on 100 Thieves had to clean up Sniper's mess? The one time that he had a very bad game, I would argue in his matchup against Whippo, where he did get solo killed by a single auto away from killing him on the flip side of that. Other than that, I can't think of a game where like he's really ran it down. He's gotten behind in lane, but he's always been effective outside of that.
That's fair. I'll give you that. Sniper is very impressive. My big thing from Masu is that you're right. He's had some moments where he's kind of like had to be picked up by the rest of the team. And then like even in the first couple of weeks, like any content around him, you've heard him talk about him having a little bit of nerves. Nuke Duck was saying early on, he was also, having that rookie attitude like in playing where like you're not playing it as well as you normally do when you're first on stage. But he adapts so much quicker than I've seen any other rookie do it, because everyone I've talked to in the at FlyQuest has talked about his growth in scrims, and you can see it on stage. And if you even look at statistics, like Meech and Sniper both getting a lot more kills and all that stuff. So like if you're looking at KDAs, that looks good. But then if you look at the other half of the data, if you look at the microplay and all that stuff, Meech and Sniper are always negative and Masu is always positive. So he's learned over the course of 4 weeks of gameplay how to improve his laning and microplay.
Sure, but who's got the most damage of any bot laner in the league?
That is also Meech. I'll say that. Like, you're fair there. That's fair. But like that also
that is a byproduct of us having messier games. I will say we are the bloodiest team. So like to a certain extent, you have to take that with a grain of salt. I think
you definitely are.
I honestly believe, as good as Masu is, I don't think he's head and shoulders above everybody else at his role. I think you can make arguments where FBI has had an incredible split despite NRG's downturn. I think you can make arguments that him and Meech are pretty close to each other. I don't think you can argue that it's anybody but Sniper and Whippo top 2 in the league in their role. Is there any other top laner in your mind that comes even close to those two right now?
From the last gameplay we saw, no.
So how can you sit here and tell me that is not clear-cut case for rookie of the split?
I guess we have 2 weeks. 2 weeks to figure it out.
We got a head-to-head
That's the
too.
best counter argument I've ever heard for anyone else being rookie of the split. I'm gonna be real. Like, you got me there.
Second hardest schedule, NRG. Gauntlet of a final 2 games. This weekend, a little bit more of a mixed bag. Should be relatively fine, or at least they should be able to have closer games, assuming they rebound. But again, that underlying assumption that they're going to come back better than they left it, it's not a given. Take the nameplates off for a second. You have a team that is 1 game away from last place in the league with the second hardest schedule. Narratively, no matter what, That's a tough journey to climb, and you are at risk for missing playoffs no matter what. But they are the defending champions. We've seen them go on runs before. There's a history here that, quite frankly, even though they do have this incredibly hard schedule, you gotta believe that they're gonna pull it together. It would be astounding if they go on to miss playoffs. Like just mind-blowing if they do. But there's a clear world where they could. They do technically face the bottom 2 teams in the league, but then they also play the top 2. So you figure if they go 2-2 there, they should realistically separate themselves from Immortals and Shopify. But you never know. They've done weirder things. I'm just saying, I'd be worried. But nobody should be hitting the panic button more than Dignitas. Hardest remaining schedule in the league by a mile. And when you look at the grouping that they're with in the standings against C9 and NRG, like, I don't think most people put them in the same caliber despite having that record. So if you're a Dig fan, like, now's the time to hit the panic button. You're thinking that you're probably missing playoffs, which, to be fair, was part of expectations at the beginning of the year. So I'm not going to flame all that much. It ultimately kind of is what it is, and they have some younger players that can develop. But yeah, this ain't looking easy for you whatsoever. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe. Drop a comment down below. Who do you think is going to overcome their hard schedule or collapse under an even weak schedule? So we'll see. Thank you for tuning in. I'll catch you later. Adios.